Continuing our seminar on the Bhagavad-gita as it is. We are now in chapter 2. In chapter 1, we first saw how Duryodhana was appraising his army, and he was also appraising the opposite side, the Pandavas. In chapter 1, we saw that when the Kurus blew their conch shell and when the Pandavas blew their conch shells, it was different experience. For when the Pandavas headed by Krishna blew their transcendental conch shells, it shattered the hearts of the Kurus. That did not happen when the Kurus sounded their conch shells. Then Arjuna spoke the first words to Krishna, "Take my chariot. I want to see who has come here to fight on behalf of the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra, known as Duryodhana." And when Arjuna saw on the other side family members, teachers, so many relatives that he had spent his whole life, he became overwhelmed by compassion. And in two different sets of arguments, Arjuna presented to Krishna why he should not fight. He gave moral reasons, he gave social reasons, and then at the end, we hear from Sanjaya that Arjuna says to Krishna, "I shall not fight. O Govinda, I shall not fight." In chapter 2, Krishna's immediate response was that, "Arjuna, this behavior of yours is the sign of somebody impotent, a eunuch. Masma klaibyam smagamaparta." Krishna said, "This behavior of yours is unbecoming of someone like you." But Arjuna continued to give his reasons why he didn't want to fight the battle. But then we saw in verse number 7 in chapter 2, the turning point of this Bhagavad-gita, where Arjuna says to Krishna, "Shishyasteham shadimang twang prapanam." Now I am confused about my duty. So at least Arjuna has enough sense to recognize that he is in a confused position. And so he says, "In this condition, I am asking you, Krishna. I don't want you to be my friend. I want you to be my guru. I want you to be my teacher. Now you tell me, Krishna, what I should do at this crucial moment, because this is supposed to be the first day of war." So Arjuna surrenders to Krishna. "Shishyasteham, I'm your disciple. Prapanam, I surrender. Now you instruct me. Don't act as my friend. All these years we have been friends. But now I want that friendly relation to end. You act as my guru." And the implication, guru's business is to chastise. So Krishna accepts Arjuna's request and begins instructing Bhagavad-gita to Arjuna. And he says to Arjuna, "A learned person that you're purporting to be does not speak like you. You are posing yourself as a learned person, pandit, but no pundit talks like you're talking. So we read in our last class 20 verses, verses 11 through 30, Sankhya, an analytical study of life, and Krishna has broken it down to two items, matter and spirit, or body and soul, or what is eternal and what is temporary. That is what we learned in those 20 verses, 11 through 30, in chapter 2. Krishna gave the symptoms of the soul, so many symptoms. Now we'll pick up on text number 31. So this next section of chapter 2 is called Kshatriya Dharma. Because what we're doing, I have broken out the Bhagavad-gita into different sections. So this next section, 8 verses, Kshatriya Dharma. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. So Krishna is now addressing Arjuna from his social position in society. He is a Kshatriya, and as a Kshatriya, there is a code of behavior that is necessary. Now Krishna is saying, this war, there is no better engagement for you. And fighting on religious principles. We can fight, but a lot of times the fighting is based on sense gratification, selfishness, lust, desire. But Krishna is pointing out to Arjuna, this war is based on religious principles. And there were many reasons. First of all, it was the lawful inheritance for the Pandavas. And even though they lost in the gambling match, not once, but twice, they executed the punishment. And so the agreement was that after the exile, they would regain their kingdom. So they had every right, they had every religious reason to get back their kingdom. After all, they're Kshatriyas. But Duryodhana would not give them, what to speak of 5 villages, he would not give them even the amount of land on a needlepoint. And before this day of number 1 of Bhagavad-gita, Krishna had already gone to the Kurus on a peace mission. And Krishna said, the Pandavas and I don't want war, but you have to give them their property, what is owed them, what is religiously due them, that which you promised, Kurus. We don't want a war, but you have to give the Pandavas what is theirs. But of course, Duryodhana, because he is selfish, because he is envious, he does not agree. And therefore, the peace proposal was a failure. So Krishna is saying here, there is no need for hesitation. No more talks. That day, that ship has already sailed. Now it is time for action. Okay, next Krishna says, O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought. Yes, Pandavas didn't want this fight, but they had no choice. They didn't want it. They were not seeking it. They were not belligerent. But it is now their duty, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. Because in the scriptures, the Kshatriya who fights on religious principles is a win-win situation. If he wins the war, he gets the spoils of the war. If he dies in the fight, he goes to heaven. What is the loss? So again, no need for hesitation. You should be happy. You should be happy. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties. And in chapter 1, Arjuna was saying just the opposite. Arjuna was saying, oh, if we fight, we'll become implicated by sin. And Krishna is saying, no, it's just the opposite. By not fighting, you will incur sin. Just the opposite. Again, religious duty of fighting. Neglecting your duties. Everybody has duties. Even these children have duties. Yes, he poked his head up. Very good. Everyone has duties. Human life is judged by how we execute our duties. That's how we're judged. Certainly someone like Arjuna is also going to be judged on how he executes his duty. That is the meaning of Aryan life, advanced civilized life. Just in the same way, Maharaj Parikshit, as soon as he was informed of the curse, immediately he said, what is my duty? Not what is my bucket list. That's a new thing now. Bucket list means, oh, I only have so many years to live, then I must go to France, I must fly a helicopter. They make a list of all the things they want to do, sense gratification, before they die. It's called a bucket list. And they think, oh, if I execute everything in my bucket list, oh, now I can die. That's not Parikshit. Parikshit's response was, what is my duty now that I'm going to die? Not, oh, I only have a few years to enjoy sense gratification. Duty and sense gratification are two different things. So Krishna is hitting on this point. Your religious duty of fighting, and lose your reputation as a fighter. Again, Kshatriya lives by certain codes. So Krishna is pointing out, and another thing for a Kshatriya, his name and fame is the most important thing. The most important thing. How will I be remembered after I die? What kind of legacy I will leave behind? In Vedic culture, we have so many nice examples of great kings who left behind a great example. They lived, like we will learn in the next chapter. Whatever a great man does, common man follows. So somebody in a high position should be concerned. Oh, I have to act in such a way because what kind of legacy am I going to leave behind after I die? Like we worship Prabhupada. May his fame spread all over the three worlds. As his disciples, it's our duty to make sure that Prabhupada's name and fame is promoted properly. Not that Prabhupada was good, but his disciples were all nonsense. That doesn't look good. The disciples have to show that, yes, here is our great teacher, and we try to follow his example. Then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and lose your reputation as a fighter. Arjuna's reputation was well known. Who did he defeat? Shiva. And he defeated so many other great personalities. So Arjuna, when he went to heaven to see his father Indra, there was that war with the Nivatakavachas, and there was this group that even the demigods couldn't defeat, and Arjuna was able to defeat them. So Arjuna, and Arjuna was there when Krishna got his wife Kalindi, and Arjuna and Krishna, they secured the Khandava forest so that Agni could get rejuvenated. So Arjuna had done, and then even amongst the Kurus, there were so many incidents when Arjuna defeated them. One time they even captured Duryodhana, and what did Yudhishthira say? Let him go. And they couldn't believe it. They captured him fair and square. They could have finished the whole thing. And what did Yudhishthira say? Let him go. They couldn't believe it. So Arjuna's reputation as a fighter, he had done so many great things. He was the best student of Dronacharya, the #1 student. So he had quite a reputation. So many people tried to win Draupadi. Who won Draupadi? Arjuna. Yes. So Krishna is reminding Arjuna, hey, your reputation. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Again, for the Kshatriya, his name and fame is the most important thing. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and see, there it is. Who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only. Yes, that is so abominable for a Kshatriya to leave the battle out of fear. Even Jarasandha tried to use that against Krishna. When Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna came to Jarasandha disguised as, who knows what was their disguise? Yes, as Brahmanas. And Jarasandha was very noble and very charitable to the Brahmanas, so he was willing to give Brahmanas whatever they wanted. So what did Krishna say? He said, no, we don't want anything from you. We just want to fight you. And then they took off their disguises, and he said, here is Arjuna, here is Bhima, and I'm your old enemy, Krishna. We've come to fight. And what did Jarasandha say? Oh, Krishna, I'm not going to fight you, because the last time I fought you, you ran away, ran Chorji, right? But the real reason Krishna left was what? How's that? Yes, to get Rukmini. He had better things to do. After all, how many times did Krishna already defeat Jarasandha? 17 times. Already. Seems like Jarasandha conveniently forgot those 17 times where Krishna killed off all of his army and let Jarasandha go back. So Jarasandha tried to use that logic. Oh, Krishna, you become afraid in battle. And then he said, Arjuna, you're younger, but Bhima, I'll fight with Bhima. All right. What could be more painful for you, O son of Kunti? Either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. This is Krishna's logic. Win-win. Either you get this or you get this. What are you going to lose? There's no loss here. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Yes, if you're going to fight, you have to be determined. Same way, if you're going to take a vow, that vow has to be done with determination. Not like you hear people say, "Oh, Prabhu, are you going to come to the program? I'll try." That means no determination. So in the same way, when somebody gets initiated, they have to make those vows. But those vows had to be made with determination. Dridha vrata in the Bhagavad-gita. Dridha vrata. Firm vow. Prabhupada says the same thing. How can one be a celibate? How is it that someone can be a brahmachari throughout their whole life or a sannyasi? Because they make a firm vow that under no circumstance, no, I'm going to do this. Same way with a fasting, like Ekadasi fast or Janmashtami fast. It's not that, well, I'll see how long I last. No. Ekadasi comes, no grains and beans. Janmashtami comes, okay, till midnight. Determination. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. So that's the mode of goodness. This thing here, you know you're in the mode of goodness when you execute your duties without considering happiness and distress. Somebody who's in the mode of passion or ignorance, when the duty comes, but it's too hard, I can't do it. I don't feel right. I don't feel like doing it. That's the mode of passion and ignorance. I don't feel like it. No. In the mode of goodness, whether you feel like it or not, you do your prescribed duties. And you don't worry about, am I going to be victor or the conquered? No. And doesn't care about what I'm going to win. No. And we see this throughout Bhagavad Gita, a symptom of the mode of goodness. One does what he's supposed to do regardless of the outcome. Just like Jatayu. Even Sita told Jatayu, don't fight Ravan. But Jatayu said, no, I have to honor Dasarath. Sita has been stolen, and even though Sita said, no, you're going to die, Jatayu said, no, I must try. And of course, Jatayu was killed in the line of duty. But what did he get as a benediction? How did he give up his body? In the arms of Ram. Best way to go. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're in chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized. And the next section, which is verses 39 to 53, is called Buddhi Yoga. So let's continue now. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. So fruitive results means I do things for my benefit. Fruitive. I'm doing things, but the benefactor is me. You're not gonna, anybody who's working, hey, Hiran, you're working now, right, Hiran? So, are you going to go to your boss and say, hey, boss, not only am I going to work, I'm going to work overtime and don't pay me. Are you going to do that? Yes. No. Yes. He's not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. Please, let me work 16 hours and unless your employer was who? Krishna. Yes. Okay. So fruitive results means I work, but I want to enjoy the results, the fruits of my work. But here Krishna says, now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha. So what's another name for Pritha? No, Pritha. No, Kunti. If it was Partha, but it was Pritha. When you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So, the inference is that when you act as the enjoyer of your work, you are bound up. And that's the root cause of taking birth again in the material world. It's all based on that. As long as I still want to be the enjoyer of my work, then I have to keep coming back and take birth. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So Prabhupada explains in the purport, because I've read it 100 million times, the greatest dangerous fear is to miss taking human birth. That is the most dangerous type of fear. Missing the chance for human birth, because it's only in human birth that you can make tangible spiritual advancement. Not in the lower forms, and even in the higher forms, because the demigods are in an atmosphere of too much material enjoyment. So the inclination for spiritual life is not prevalent. They're enjoying too much. Because that's why they're called demigods. They live like a god, with women and sense enjoyment. They drink elixirs that make you feel like you have the strength of 10,000 elephants. You can even imagine that, how strong. And the women, so many beautiful women are there at your disposal. And they have these beautiful gardens. Indra's streets. Our streets are made of what? Asphalt, right? But you'll read in the 8th canto, Indra's streets are made of diamonds, rubies, emeralds. Yes, that's why they're called demigods. They're living the highest type of sense gratification in the mode of goodness. Don't misunderstand. It's in the mode of goodness. So, for them to take up devotional service, no. It's not going to happen. They're enjoying too much. And in lower than human being, no chance. So it's human beings Now you have a chance to finish up the business. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. What is that aim? I must not take birth again in this material world. I must go back home, back to Godhead. That is my, how should I say, determination. These young boys, they know. Each basketball team, when the season starts, what's the goal? Championship. Otherwise, why play? Right? Every endeavor, there is in the Sanskrit is called uti, an impetus for the action. For most people, the impetus for action is money. That's why they do it. Whether it be sports or entertainment, what's the impetus? Money, money, sweeter than honey. So every endeavor has some kind of impetus. So here Krishna says, if you're on this path, Krishna's path, you have one pointed attention. I must go back home, back to Godhead. So I have to be fixed, determined. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched, because that's what Maya does. Maya's business is to distract you, deter you. That's Maya's business. You're trying to be fixed. I must get serious now about my spiritual life. What does Maya say? No, no, no. Go watch TV. No, I gotta do my japa. No, no, no. Do something else. That's the constant struggle a devotee has. The devotee is trying to do his japa, his worship, his preaching, but alongside every step of the way, Maya is saying, come on. You don't have to do this. You can do something else. Just like we've seen it so many times. Somebody gets a position, say in the temple, they get a position. So they may become expert. So then Maya says, hey, you're working from 4 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night for these people. Why don't you come and work for me? And you start to think, yeah, why am I working for these people? I've learned so many things now. Now I could go out there and I could become big man. Puffed up, yes. Puffed up. Exactly. So that's Maya's business. Every step of the way. Even you're this close, Maya is still there. You all know the story of Haridas Thakur. How he was chanting 22.5 hours every day. Talk about determination, huh? And we have a hard time doing 16. He was chanting 22.5. And not like this, Hare Krishna. No, come on. He was doing 3 times 64. That's determination. 3 times 64. And even Maya came to test him. She said, I will give you everything. But then Haridas Thakur, he made Maya into his disciple. She said, from my husband. Who's Maya's husband? Huh? Who's Maya's husband? Yes, Shiva, Shambhu. So she said, from my husband, I have gotten the name of Ram. Now, Haridas Thakur, I want you to initiate me into this name of Krishna. She said, the name of Ram gives me liberation, but Krishna gives me love of God. I want Krishna. So did Haridas Thakur do a fire sacrifice? Did he contact the GBC? No. He just said, okay, chant Hare Krishna. Simple initiation. After all, she's Maya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Now Krishna continues, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. So this is the fruits of karma kand. If you do pious fruitive activities according to the Vedas, what do you get? So you get to go to heaven and enjoy like the demigods. Or you get birth in a good family. All right? Or you get power. Or you get beauty, beautiful bodily features. All these. So when you see people and they have all kinds of material opulences, it means they've in the past they've done some kind of pious activity. Otherwise they can't have material enjoyment. Now, what they're doing with it now is going to determine the next life. But the fact that they have these, whether it be wealth or beauty or great talent or born in a great family, means they didn't get that by accident. Somewhere along some birth, they did some pious activities mixed with devotional service. Lord Chaitanya points this out. Whether you do karma kand or jnana kand, you don't get any success unless there's a tinge of bhakti. This is one of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Some kind of bhakti has to be added. Just like if you're making chapatis, there has to be some salt, otherwise no taste. All you cooks know. Got to put a little salt in the dough. In the dough. Hey, this is coming from my wife. She has told me $500,000. Am I right, ladies? You put a little salt. Huh? Oh, that's not, well, my wife disagrees. My wife disagrees. My wife says you got to put a little salt. So you'll have to discuss with her. Huh? Varuni chapati. Okay, let's continue. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. See, there's people right now in any religion, not just Hindu, all the religions. They think, yes, religion is good, but for this purpose, that I get good material benefits. And you'll see on TV right now, tomorrow, Sunday, all these big preachers, and they have these mega churches, and they're worth billions. Some of these guys have their own jet. Don't forget Trump. I've seen some of these guys. They have billions of dollars, right? And what are they preaching? Oh, yes, worship this, do this, and you will enjoy nicely in this world. That's materialistic preaching. That's all. It starts tomorrow. You turn on the channels, Joel Osteen and this guy and that guy, and they're preaching that, yes, follow this path and you will live very nicely. Huh? Of course. Of course. Not just the jet, big mansion, everything. Jet is a side product. What was it you? You were seeing some, what is that show? Yes.
There's this guy who justified the jet by saying he needs to be higher up to connect with God.
Yeah.
That's why he needed a jet.
Yes. And the stupid people gave him his jet, right? Yes. Hare Krishna. So such persons, they think that material advancement, that is the objective of religion. But Lord Chaitanya says what? What is the objective of religion? Yes, love of Krishna, love of God. Prema Pumarto Mahan. That is Lord Chaitanya's objective. That is real religion, true religion. Krishna continues, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So this answers a question which comes up towards the end of Krishna book. Maharaj Parikshit asked Shukadeva Goswami, Maharaj, how come the devotees of Vishnu and Krishna are generally poor? And how come worshippers of Lord Shiva live very nicely? Then Parikshit said, yes, Narayan lives in Vaikuntha, all opulences, but his devotees are poor. And Shiva, he lives under a tree, even though his wife is the material energy. She could create for him the most fantastic palace. But what does Lord? He lives under a tree. He's got his mala. And his worshippers are very, very opulent. Parikshit said, this doesn't make sense. Please explain. So, Shukadeva explains, yes. And he quoted Krishna, because Yudhishthira asked the same question. And Krishna told Yudhishthira, yes, if I really favor someone, my first business, take everything away. Why? But does that mean, that means Krishna is cruel? Is that what Krishna is? We're worshiping a cruel God that, yes, worship Krishna and you're going to lose everything. No. It says, Shukadeva says, not without a purpose. Krishna explains, he says, I do this to a devotee. Why? Because in the beginning, the devotee has many material attachments. And those attachments are preventing him from making real spiritual advancement. So Krishna says, my first installment of mercy, I take away his crutches. I take away the things that are preventing him. Then, in that condition, two things happen to the devotee. First, the devotee becomes bereft of material things, and then his relatives say, oh, you're poor, I don't want nothing to do with you. So now the devotee loses two things. Because we even have an expression in America, nobody loves you when you're down and out. When you have lots of money, the phone is ringing. Hey, how you doing? Now you don't have any money, nobody calls. Nobody wants to know you. This is a phenomenon. When you're living high, right? Supposing, not that it would ever happen. If any of you won the lottery, you'd be surprised how many friends you had. Remember me? You remember me? Yes, I knew you. So, but when you have nothing, then you realize who your real friends are. When you have nothing, then you realize who your real friends are. So Krishna says, in such a condition, the devotee has no choice. He takes full shelter of Krishna. And by taking full shelter of Krishna, what does Krishna do? He gives himself. When you take full shelter of Krishna, then Krishna gives you himself. So Krishna does this so that you have no other recourse but to fully surrender. Prabhupada has mentioned this several times in his own life. Just before starting this movement, Prabhupada was making a last-ditch effort. He was still trying to maintain his family. So he had a business, I think it was in Allahabad, right? And he was saying, okay, I'm going to go for it. Because according to Prabhupada's astrology chart, Prabhupada was supposed to become one of the richest men in India. So Prabhupada was, okay, I'm really going to go for it. Then what happened? Fire. The whole business destroyed. And what did Prabhupada immediately quote? That verse that Krishna spoke to Yudhishthira. Arishyet tad dhanam shanai. Prabhupada remembered, oh yes, this is Krishna's real mercy upon me. Now I'm finished with this householder life. Krishna has taken everything away. Now I see what Krishna wants me to do. Because Prabhupada was thinking, first I'll become rich, then I'll preach. I'll be set up nicely first for my family. That's what Prabhupada was thinking. He thought it was his duty. I'll become rich, set up my family, and then I'll go out and preach. Krishna said, no, you preach now. And when he came to America, how long before his first temple? 9 months. He came in September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July is when the first temple. He arrived in September, so it wasn't until July that the incorporation of ISKCON. So it didn't come easy. It did not come easy. And at times, Prabhupada was thinking, maybe I should go back. Maybe I should give up. But he did his duty without attachment to success or failure, gain, victory, or defeat. So, all right, everybody chant the Maha Mantra. Okay, the Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the 3 modes of material nature. What are those 3 modes? Goodness, passion, and ignorance. Okay, good. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the 3 modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these 3 modes. Now I have a review question. So my review question is, we've already studied Bhagavad-gita, yes? We've gone through the whole Bhagavad-gita. Now your examination. What does Krishna say in chapter 14 when Arjuna asks this question? How do I transcend the modes of nature? What is Krishna's answer? How do you transcend the modes of nature? That is the answer. No other answer. And what kind of devotional service? That's the answer. Continuous. What's the verse? 14:26. Mang chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. So avyabhicharena, like he said, continuous, nirantara. That kind of devotional service. Not just on Sunday. Oh yes, I do devotional service. I go to the temple on Sunday. Monday through Saturday is another story. But I'll give one day for Krishna. No, they're not going to get liberated that way. It has to be 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year throughout your whole life. Non-ending. Bhakti yogena sagunan samatityai. Then you cross over those modes. Good. Become transcendental to these modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. So according to Bhagavad-gita, what is the purpose of the Vedas? According to Bhagavad-gita? To know Krishna. Very perfect answer. To know Krishna. And what is the reference? 15:15. Vedaischa sarvaya aham eva vedya Vedanta krid Vedavid eva chaham. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Who is that I? Krishna. So that's why her answer is perfect according to Bhagavad-gita. Very good. The purpose of studying the Vedas is to know Krishna. Okay, good. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. This is a rough one. This is a rough one because everybody thinks, hey, I worked hard for that money. It's mine. No, you are allowed to take an allowance from Krishna, or you're allowed to take prasad. So yes, I've been to all of your houses, right? When I go to your house, I always say, oh, your house is very nice. And what do you all say? Oh no, Prabhuji, it's Krishna's house. Right? Don't you all say that? You've said it 1,000 times. Yes, you have the right idea. It is Krishna's house. It is Krishna's money. But you're allowed to take prasad. You're allowed to take an allowance. That's a different story. We take, just like before we eat, what do? We offer it. But does Krishna just gobble it up and, no, you starve? Is that what Krishna does? What happens? He eats, and he puts back. Go take prasad. That's Krishna. That's the whole bhakti process. You give to Krishna, and you take. Never consider never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities. That's what everybody out there is doing. That's everything they're doing. Why are they doing it? For me. I'm doing this because I want to enjoy the fruits of my work. I'm the cause. But a devotee is, no, I do this because it is pleasing to Krishna. Just like yesterday was Ekadasi. Nobody wants to do Ekadasi. Right? I don't know about you, but Ekadasi, man. Huh? Ekadasi, yeah, that was Prabhupada. No, because when Prabhupada first instituted Ekadasi, The devotees were saying, Prabhupada, Ekadasi. Prabhupada said, okay, then make an Ekadasi feast. But no grains and beans. But you know what I'm talking about. Naturally, you want to eat sumptuously, but Ekadasi, unless you're an expert cook, it's hard to be sumptuous on Ekadasi. I don't know about you, but I don't care how much I eat on Ekadasi. It's like, it's not enough. Jai, you are very fortunate. Very fortunate. All right. So the idea is the non-devotee does everything based on himself. What's in it for me? The devotee does things. I do this because it's pleasing to Krishna. And never be attached to not doing your duty. So this is a big, prominent theme of Bhagavad-gita. You do what you're supposed to do, your duty. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Yes. A businessman does not think like that. A businessman makes every calculation. Am I going to be a success or am I going to be a failure? But a devotee does things, no, I'm not worried about success or failure. Again, Jatayu, Prabhupada. Prabhupada came with how much money? 40 rupees. You're going to start a worldwide movement with 40 rupees? Wearing a dhoti and pointy rubber shoes and a shaved head? No, Prabhupada came because it was his duty. And even he met that man on the park bench. And the man was asking him, and Prabhupada, yes, I have temples, I have books, but Prabhupada didn't have anything at that time. And Prabhupada said, yes, it's only separated by time. Because Prabhupada could see it was coming, Krishna was going to send in the future. O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So this is Krishna's definition of yoga. You do what you're supposed to do with an equal mind. O Dhananjay. What does Dhananjay mean? Winner of wealth. Keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service. Yes. An idle mind is the devil's workshop. So the devotee is always thinking, am I engaged in devotional service? Because as soon as the devotee stops doing devotional service, who comes into picture? Maya says, oh, you don't want to do devotional service? You serve me. Come on, let's go. There's no in between. You're either serving Krishna. As soon as you stop serving Krishna, Maya says, okay, come here. Come on, slap. Come on, slap. Come on, slap. And when you get slapped enough, Krishna, Krishna, engage me. Hare Krishna. Yes. So after some time, the devotee wises up. I'm tired of being kicked and slapped by Maya. Let me voluntarily engage in Krishna consciousness. Keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad actions even in this life. Now somebody may say, wait a second. If I engage in devotional service, I'm going to lose my good reactions? Yes, you want that. Because if by devotional service you did not get rid of your good reactions, what would happen? You take birth again, where? Heavenly planets. You got, but what happens? You're still a prisoner. You're still in the, so when Krishna says, you rid yourself of both good and bad, means you're finished here in the material world. You're going to Krishna. This is not the only time Krishna will mention this in Bhagavad-gita. He'll mention it again. You know what chapter? Rama? I think it's in 5th, but we'll see. I think it's in 5th. Yes, the devotee rids himself of both good and bad reactions. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in this material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. Because later on in chapter 8, Krishna will say, the miseries in the material world, where do they exist? Huh? All throughout. Won't he say in chapter 8, from the highest place down to the lowest, all are places of misery. Dukhalayam Shaspatam. So that's the thing here. If you want to get free, because this is seen, even the demigods in heaven, they're not enjoying uninterrupted, because what happens every once in a while? The demons come. And we've seen sometimes the demigods get kicked out. Right? Sometimes they get kicked out. Hiranyakashipu kicked them out. Bali Maharaj kicked them out. So going to heaven doesn't mean there's no trouble. There's trouble. There's difficulties. So you want to get free from that? You got to become liberated. You have to go back home, back to Godhead. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. So there's a nice chapter. There's 2 chapters in the 5th canto which deal with this forest of delusion. One is told by Narada. Actually, it's not Narada, it's Jadabharat to King Rahugana. He talks about the forest of material enjoyment. So after hearing that narration, Parikshit said to Shukadev, I'm confused. Can you explain that? In other words, Jadabharat explained to King Rahugana about the dense forest of delusion, or the forest of material enjoyment. So Parikshit said, I don't understand. So then Shukadev tells the same chapter in his own words. So there's another, and that chapter is called The Material World as a Great Forest of Enjoyment. So it's a very interesting chapter, and it paints the material world as a very dangerous place. It gives all these kinds of analogies as if you were in a forest that relates even to modern day living. Okay, so that's the dense forest of delusion. You shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. Meaning, if anybody tries to present yet another philosophy of how you can enjoy this material world, you'll say, no, stop. I've had enough. Just go away. Talk to the hand. When you're in Krishna consciousness, you don't want to hear all these empty, like all the politicians now. Both camps. What are they doing? All right, if I'm president, I'll do. They're not going to do anything. But they're all promising. They're all promising. I'm going to build a wall. They're all making these crazy promises that anybody in their right mind knows there's no way. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. In many years ago in one American election, you know what the phrase was? A chicken in every pot. Because I think it was during the Depression when there was no food. So this president was saying, vote for me and everyone will have a chicken in their pot, meaning prosperity. So devotee knows, hey, stop all this. Nobody can, no. I just want to know how to go back home, back to Godhead. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. So fixed in the trance of self-realization, devotional service. Prabhupada calls it practical samadhi. Devotional service is practical samadhi. You all, the yogis, they try for that state of samadhi, right? But bhakti yogis are not trying to be like the yogis. They're doing practical samadhi. What is practical samadhi? Always engaged in devotional service. Either preaching or cooking for Krishna or writing for Krishna or working for, doing something for Krishna, but doing it without stop is practical samadhi. Now, who would be the best example of practical samadhi? Prabhupada, yes, but Maharaj Ambarish, but who would be the best example? Gopis. The gopis, what are they doing? They're churning butter, but who are they thinking of? They're taking care of children, who are they thinking of? They're taking care of their husbands, who are they thinking of? No matter what the gopis are doing, from sun up to, and when they go to sleep at night, what are they thinking of? So the gopis, according to Lord Chaitanya, they are the best, the topmost of all yogis. But not the yogi like, oh, no. Yogis who are always thinking of, you all know Krishna Kumar's favorite verse of Bhagavad-gita 8:7. Perform your prescribed duty of fighting and at the same time, yes, remember, go on remembering me. Yes. That's practical samadhi. I'll be with you in a second. That's practical samadhi. Huh? Yes, yes. That's your verse. Kamlesh's verse is 1866. Your verse is Bhagavad-gita 8:7. My verse, Harinama Eva Kevalam. So, the devotee wants to be engaged. The 6 Goswamis, they had a phrase, Avyarta Kalitvam. You know that? Yes. I don't want to waste a moment. Same with Parikshit, said the same thing. After the 7 days notice, Parikshit said, I don't want to waste 1 second. I have to hear about Krishna. I don't want there be any, that's why he wouldn't go to sleep. He wanted to strictly always hear about Krishna. All right, everybody chant the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.